Только что мы с вами говорили о том, насколько может быть опасны взломы для компании и для человека. Ведь мы все окружены цифровыми устройствами, и в результате
We all are surrounded with digital devices, and the result of an action, some inadmissible events might happen. And it is very an important factor here is that the possibility of getting access of a person to a service.
общение между человеком и сервисом
And the more this stage of communication between services and the person is protected, the lower is the possibility that hacker can get through. And as one of the options
сейчас присутствует.
which are present to get access to a certain, it's a double factor authentication. And we're going to speak about it with Victor Chashing, Operational Director, OO Multifactor. Hello.
В общем-то, двухфакторная аутентификация на самом деле давно стала уже не...
Well, dual factor authentication is not just a dual factor, but it's a multi-factor authentication because every person should have several entrance factors, not just login, password, and something else. And this something else, you should have a lot of it. So this is a concept of development of the multi-factor authentication. And this is the trendy and the best approach in this area. But people are not ready to use something outside of regular
С точки зрения...
USB sticks or SMS messages, which from the exploitation point of view are not applicable to big organizations or anything else.
Сейчас рынок очень сильно...
So the market is actively developing from this point of view.
Что такое?
Okay, let's speak about what is modern dual-factor authentication. Previously, I did have a certain token. It was a big USB stick. I put it in a USB port, and it helped me to get logged into the corporate network. Then I have certain SMS messages from bank services, which are coming to me in case when I do certain financial transaction.
Сейчас
So in practical life, I don't see any other approaches. But speaking about corporate network, we use your products in corporate network. So I have an application for my mobile phone. And by this application, I do confirm that I make a login in my computer. So can you tell me, please, how the modern multi-factor authentication works? Okay, let's begin with the simple one, SMS messages. Why banks are sending SMS messages? Because in order to get SMS message, you need your mobile phone, any mobile phone. It doesn't matter where is it located, even in a roaming. You can introduce this one-time code and you can introduce it, but you need to have any type of communication. But the minus of these SMS messages, short messages, and since the year 2007, we know that they can be cached, transacted by the base station, or you can send these
Грубо говоря, он пропустит
to wrong person, and he will miss the proper SMS in the flow of those SMS messages which come from the false base stations.
да?
It's a targeted attack against a certain person.
Относительно недорого, если пользователь...
It's not very expensive, especially if the user is not using this approach. The same bank.
Поставите приложение банка, то...
But if you will install bank application, the bank will stop sending you SMS messages and they will send push messages. Yeah, push messages. They will send push messages because it's much cheaper. It's basically free of charge for the company.
Нет, потому что за смс-ку надо мобильному оператору платить,
Because you have to pay mobile operator for the SMS message, but for the push you don't pay. So all the banks are moving in this direction. Speaking about the corporate mobile applications, the companies don't want to pay 3 times a day if you enter somewhere and 3 times you receive SMS message. It means in 60 SMS messages per month. It involves a lot of costs. A small thing, but if you have 20,000 people, that's a lot.
деньги. Поэтому
Everybody know how to count money. So they are moving to mobile applications, push messages, and more companies have those mobile applications on the market.
сервис двухфакторной аутентификации находится он-прем.
And if double-factor authentication service is located inside of the corporate perimeter,
приложения, да, и на эти
they still have their own applications and then they send push messages.
плюс токенов. Ну,
What are the disadvantages and advantages of the tokens? You mean the hardware? Yeah, hardware tokens,
как они, в принципе,
like USB flash stick.
подключались, сделали вид, что они клавиатура,
They've been connected, they show that they are like a keyboard, then you activate it and somehow,
просто шестизначный
and then it pulls 6-digit code in a field,
сервис требует, да, но там минусы такие
which is required by the service. But the disadvantage is that
в том, что их не везде
the minus of these codes that they can be introduced anywhere. If it's a web application, you can make any form you want, and you can add some additional form.
Но если есть
You can make another process
удаленный рабочий стол, там некуда
or a remote desktop, for example.
вбивать, собственно, одноразовый код, потому что
You can type this one-type code every time, and you don't have this field. And Microsoft didn't have this such interface to follow through the second factor.
все одноразовые коды
That's why all one-factor approaches, they do not work with it. And coming back to our hardware tokens, what's so bad about the keyboard emulator? Its data can be intercepted, and the software on the computer can intercept this data and broadcast this data to his own owner to get this remote access.
сами токены
Second of all, tokens can be broken easily.
ломают.
People are losing them, people break them, they constantly forget them. So
Перешли в один момент к
companies have switched
программным токенам.
to software tokens.
Да, то есть когда ты на мобильном
Yeah, software tokens.
смартфоне
When in your mobile device you install Google Authenticator or one of those thousands programs which generate one-time codes,
в качестве
and you use it as
плюсы в чем?
those disposable codes. What are the advantages? The advantage is that your mobile phone is always with you. You are not going to forget it.
На зарядке, да, и
It's always being charged.
как бы
So
фактор забывчивости и ломать, и
the factor of losing it and breaking it is becomes secondary. However, the disadvantage is that this one-time code has to be introduced somewhere, and on a step-by-step basis, everybody is moving to push messages in mobile applications that you shouldn't type anything. And the exchange, well, the service receives a request from the hardware that I would like to connect this user. This user signs with his own digital signature. Then it's sent to the user. User confirms with a button that I agree, and then
в обратном пути.
everything is being done in both directions. And even interface-free connections allow us to do something like that because the interface is on the side of the user.
То есть, грубо говоря, ты можешь там просто
Roughly speaking,
щелчок подключения, да,
you can just press the connection button and you have some login, password, you have some smart card connected to your computer, so you're getting connected. The push message goes to your mobile application, you press the button, and then you get connected.
из плюсов в том, что у тебя каждая сессия
So the advantages is that every session is signed differently with its own timestamp, with its own
своя пара ключей используется даже иногда.
keys.
То с точки зрения того,
So
что
this is a great advantage from the point of view of interception
ну, в общем-то, вот так.
and changing
В
it.
общем, про текущее развитие, текущее состояние.
So this is the current development of this situation. And honestly speaking, from the point of view of the user experience, for me as the dual-level authentication user, this is kind of an extra operation for me. For example, when bank sends push message
Для подтверждения финансовой транзакции
to confirm financial transaction,
для меня, как для пользователя, бесшовно, потому что у меня сразу появляется
it's a seamless process because I immediately see this push in bank application. It's enough for me just to press this button and then I see the operation. It's very convenient and normal. But in a case, if this is a software token to get access into corporate network, you have to enter mobile phone.
как будто
So this is extra step.
позволяют упростить вот эту двухфакторную
Are there any trends which can simplify this dual factor authentication or replace it by some other approach?
Очень интересный тренд.
Well, there's an interesting trend
Замечал.
from one of our market colleagues. I've seen it. Their main product
Операционную систему, да? Ну, то есть
is the entrance into the operation system, the logon screen. And they replace it completely by their own solution.
операционных систем работает.
And in a number of, it works with a number of operation systems, OSs. So the story is that you approach the device and instead of giving password and logging on your mobile phone, you say, I would like to get connected to this computer. And you get authorized without entering any data or anything.
Фактически это, ну,
And you are so it's like 1.5 factor authentication. It's not a Russian developer, it's a foreign company.
ну, это
So
интересная история, потому что фактически
this is a very interesting story because basically all your credentials are stored in your mobile phone. Plus, you do confirm logging in your mobile phone by the biometrics, at least
ну, или там тоже Face ID.
fingerprint or maybe Face ID is being used by this phone. So it's a very good trend. However,
Базовых,
it requires replacement of a certain basic OS components.
да, что
And we know
системы, они написаны там.
that current OSs they do have a lot of bugs, and if you replace it by something else,
Либо образ
it's not a fact that you will completely replace the security side of it,
удаленного какого-то подключения.
especially for the remote access or for
То есть
local access as well.
как раз таки вот в чем смысл многофакторной аутентификации.
So the main meaning of this multi-factor authentication is that we should see the separation between different methods of authentication. I'm speaking about physical methods, that your credentials are stored in one place, you go to that place, confirmation is done in another place, and you show that you confirm so that all these pieces are connected into the same chain. This is the main idea, and this is the main feature,
Нельзя не носить, класть
Вообще
яйца в одну
выглядит-
that you cannot hold all the eggs in the same basket. Well, on the level of operational system, they should be solved. Yeah.
На самом деле, вот тоже пришлось столкнуться.
However, we have faced development of such logon screen for Windows,
На самом деле,
and it did have so many stumbling blocks
иногда грязный хакер
that we had to use dirty hacking
по умолчанию.
to understand the behavior of the system by default.
Забавная история с
There was a curious story in a server 2008.
2032-битным в том, что он
It was a 32-bit server.
методы аутентификации.
It has not allowed to use third-party authentication methods, and in a case if it's a GUID,
Идентификатор всех.
graphic user identifier for all these methods of authentication, if the GUID is smaller than any other methods. Well, all the authentication methods in the system, especially in Windows, they have their own identifier.
ГУИД называется, я не помню, как.
I know it's called GUID, graphic user.
Типа идентификатор программы внутри.
It's a software identifier inside of the. It's like 24-digit number.
Даже из цифр.
Can be a word consisting of digits and letters. Speaking about the biometrics in dual-factor authentication, the retina, the face, the fingerprint,
Ну,
does it have any place? Well, let's see.
что тут еще есть
We have to understand that there's another story as strong and weak authentication.
с коллегами периодически встречаюсь, да, кто занимается
I do meet my colleagues once in a while, and we've been involved in mathematical justification of all these authentication methods. And they said that modern sensors, which are installed in our mobile phones, it's bullshit.
биометрия пальцев.
You mean these biometrics? Yeah, these fingerprints, this is not operational because
Для того же отпечаток
basically speaking, for the same fingerprint, in order to determine with 100% accuracy that this person is that particular person who is the owner of this finger, you need to have a full scale, full size scan of his fingerprint, not less than 1 centimeter in the square meterage. Well, the Apple's fingerprint is very small. But right now,
Face ID.
Apple and the recent phones, they have Face ID. Well, it's much better about the Face ID because the Face ID
С учетом глубины, да, сейчас уже
happens with the consideration of the depth. It's not just any picture that can be put in here,
и строится,
Там, да,
строится
побрей.
трехмерная модель, да, более-менее.
but a 3D model of the face is being built. So,
Точность пока еще меньше, чем один.
speaking about precision, it's less than 1 per thousand.
Распознавание это когда, собственно,
Precision of
распознавание
discovery. So when false discovery of face can be out of 1,000 faces.
Одна фальшивка.
So one false out of 1,000.
срабатывания. Это считается
So
достаточным.
there could be one false positive, and this is sufficient for authentication to be weak.
Face ID точность меньше, к сожалению.
Face ID has even lower precision. I don't know exactly,
Да, но там порядка типа 1 на 200 лиц
but it's like 1
срабатывания
in every 200 false positive. And a person with a good makeup can look like a real. Yeah, you can make a makeup and the person will look like without any specific additional cheekbones and other things when the face becomes thicker or thinner with special face cheeks, underskin amendments.
Один из дополнительных методов аутентификации
So, as one of the additional authentication methods, it can be used. But from the point of view of full access to some critical systems, unfortunately, current sensors, which are widely proliferated in the market, they are not applicable.
есть какие-то специализированные решения.
Yes, there are some certain specialized solutions. For example,
Загранпаспорт или на визу сдаете отпечаток.
when speaking about your foreign passport or visa, when you submit your fingerprints, it has a big sensor with big scanner and it scans your whole finger.
Вот это вот специализированное решение, но опять же, оно
So this is a specialized solution, which is very expensive.
факторная аутентификация вообще любой защиты состоит в том, сколько мы готовы заплатить за то, чтобы не
How much are we ready to pay in order not to lose more? But I would like to ask you a question. Multi-factor authentication of any type, like SMS or biometrics, it still has a certain storage location for this information.
Как-то это специфично называется, да? Где?
This authentication information where your fingerprints, face authentication. Yeah, authentication storage.
Опасаюсь.
Honestly, I'm afraid to scan my face. Sometimes they have this face pay. I'm afraid of it because I'm afraid that my face is going to be stored in some database. Why do they need my face in this database? And somebody will break into this database and will immediately get access to all those beautiful faces of millions of people. The storage by itself of this multi-factor authentication, how well are they protected? And are there any precedents of hackers breaking into them?
есть область.
Well, once again, there are cloud services of authentication, there are local services of authentication, something in local services of authentication. Well, nobody knows what happens within them in the local ones. But speaking about the cloud authentication services, I don't know of well-known leaks in recent 10 years. There was not a single leak
Ну,
from this database, so they are strong. Well, logins and passwords from certain services, they are regularly being stolen. But when you do authentication, you become very careful and you follow how you do it,
что
because this is something which is related to storage of critically important data,
куда-то в целой системы.
which gives access to very sensitive systems.
Вот когда мы там делали свой, да, мы
When we've been making our own service, we've been looking at the PCI DSS standard, which is involved for the card data storage, just because we had this story in our life that previously, in the previous 20 years, we've been manufacturing payment services, and right now we have authentication services. In addition to that, we have reinforced additionally
тем, что мы
protection of our data,
применяем еще практики, там, которые нам подсказывают партнеры.
and we apply practices which are helped by our partners that some things
Нужно так сделать.
have to be done this way, other things have to be done another way.
Сейчас сказать, что именно
I cannot tell you what we've been doing exactly. However, we're constantly learning, we're constantly improving our system, we're constantly
с недавними
patching it. And due to recent events, we had to replicate, well, not replicate, but we had to close the story with DNS
что у нас
hosting.
была
Because we did have a story that DNS hostings where we've been placed, they've been under constant attack.
лежала в тот момент.
And half of RuNet was
С точки с этого
broken. So additionally, from this point of view, have your service suffered from it? No, we didn't have any downtime because there's a certain cache
ну, как бы в резолве имени.
in a name resolve. And in most of the time,
Это все прошло,
most of the clients, they didn't see even any hitches
что у него
or hindrances, but only one of them have noticed that something didn't work because
минута, что
they had cache update like 1 minute in the DNS, and
через минуту вот после все прилегло.
in 1 minute after everything has been shut down, it stopped being resolved as the whole internet. Okay, Victor, you have not
Не взламывали никаких серверов.
pacified me by saying that no authentication services have been broken in the last 10 years. Well, to me, it's like a green signal that don't be afraid and you can pay with your face. Well, you also have to understand that inside of this service, they don't store your biometric information. They store digital
А, скажем,
print,
шифрование
not a photo, but the encoding keys and the end device
самого образа и преобразования его имени.
does the discovery of the image when it's being transposed into a certain digital matrix.
Биометрия никуда налево не уйдет.
So, biometrics are not going to leak out. It stays locally in a device which does the scanning. Okay, thank you very much, Victor, for an interesting interview. And I desire your company to be successful in Russian and other markets. And I do hope that in the course of these years, you will have more possibilities and the market for its
Чтобы в этом
discovery. What is very important, we shouldn't lose the power of development within it because the reduction of the competition, foreign companies are leaving the market and we can get higher access to the market, but you shouldn't relax too much and the product should not become worse. We did hear very interesting dual-factor authentication examples, one from your mobile phone. You can, without even having access to the laptop, and you can make such authentication. And we have a lot of examples. I want that this should be multi-factor authentication, and it should be seamless and simple for the end user. So I wish you to achieve such success. Thank you.